Okay, so I guess we're live. My name is Steve Thompson. I'm president of Emery Thompson Machinery, and welcome. We're going to make some, hopefully, some very good Italian ices, ice cream, gelato today, all sorts of fun products. If you email into Ken with a question, I'll do my best to answer it, and I'll repeat your question so our audience here today can also hear what's going on. We'll get making a batch right away. We're going to concentrate on Italian ices first this morning, and then go into some gelato and ice cream a little later. And then we'll end with a Bordeaux wine sorbet this afternoon, so I know everybody will at least leave happy. What's a batch freezer? Well, this is a batch freezer in its most primitive form, and you've probably all used one growing up. Let me see if I can bring these over into the camera view a little better. It's a wood bucket that has an inner cylinder in it, and that's the inner cylinder, and that goes in like that. And then we surround it with rock salt and ice. The purpose of the rock salt and ice, well, ice, of course, you know, is going to freeze, but water freezes and melts at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. By adding large crystal rock salt to it, we can lower the temperature, the freezing temperature. That's why your lakes up north freeze in the winter, but the oceans never do, because they have salt in them. So that gives us a colder freezing temperature. And then inside that would go this piece. Some people call it a beater. The old name, which we use, is a dasher. And this one has two wood blades. And as we turn the crank, this is going to scrape the walls, and it's going to scrape the freezing product that we're making, whether it's sorbets or ice cream, off the walls. So then we have the hand crank here, and we're going to crank this thing for about 40 minutes to make a quart of ice cream. That's the way all ice cream was made before my grandfather, Emery Thompson. Back then they had funny names. Emery was his first name. And that's the way all ice cream was made. Emery Thompson, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Well, his necessity was he was working in a department store. Back in 1903, they didn't have ice cream parlors as we know them. You got your ice cream either in the basement of a department store, where you also bought your candy and your bakery goods, or you went to a pharmacy, and the pharmacy sold ice cream. Well, he was working at a Macy's type of business on 14th Street in Manhattan, and in 1903 he did $100,000 gross sales that year in ice cream. That's equal to $1.1 million in today's money. So he was working really hard with those hand crank machines. He needed a better system, so he went back to his home in New Rochelle, New York, just outside New York City, to his garage, and invented the world's first batch freezer. This was about 20 years before the Italians ever made a machine, before any other American made a machine. I'll see if I can move in and show you that a little bit. That's also on the website. That was his first batch freezer, and the principle was rather, I'll pass that around. The principle was rather unique. It was a vertical cylinder, and it had a large tank attached to it that was filled with salt water, cold salt water, and he circulated the cold salt water around the barrel, and that became his source of cold. And it was motor driven. So here's this cylinder, and here's the tank, and he's circulating cold water around this for his freezing, and then it discharged out the bottom. And that became the world's first patented mechanized batch freezer, long before anybody else. Other companies, like the Italians, claim that they invented it. Well, that's not true. Emery Thompson did, and he did it in New Rochelle, New York. The business progressed. In 1919, we dropped this primitive method of vertical and went to a horizontal cylinder. And that's what you're going to see today with these machines. The reason for horizontal is twofold. One, when you have a vertical cylinder, in order to sanitize the entire barrel, you have to fill the entire barrel completely up with water to where it's splashing out. Otherwise, you're not going to sanitize the very top of it, and that's a pain in the neck. The other is Newton's law of relativity. What comes up must, what goes up must come down. Well, if you put nuts and cookies and candies in the top here, no matter what anybody says, it's going to fall to the bottom. So your ice cream down here will have more candy in it than your ice cream up here. By turning it sideways, now we're mixing it all in a circle and front to back because of the design of the beater. And so when we put whole bananas in here or Oreo cookies or anything else we're going to work with today, it's going to blend throughout the entire barrel, giving us a better product. And then when it's finished, we're going to open the gate and it's all going to push out. We don't have to get in there and scrape any ice cream out of it. And of course, when we go to sanitize the machine by putting in a couple of quarts of water, it gets thrown all the way around the barrel. So that's what we're going to do first, is sanitize the machine. I'm going to start with the countertop because that's what people are very interested in. I invented this a number of years ago, and my target market was, and you'll hear me talk about target markets because that's a lot of what business is about, is knowing who you're going to sell it to. You can't just build something or make a product that you think is wonderful and your close friends think it's wonderful. It's got to be something that you can sell. So my target market was high-end restaurants. The chefs had this machine for a long time, 12 quarts, and they were saying to me, well, we need a smaller quantity. We want to make it fresher every day. So we came up with this 6-quart machine, and that's exactly what the finished capacity of it is 6 quarts in about 10 minutes. That's the door. And I just want to show you all the parts, which there aren't many of. This is the beater. It'll look familiar to that other one. Instead of, just like that wood one I showed you, it's spring-loaded, so as the beater bars wear, which they don't wear very much, they're made out of Delrin, which is a dairy-approved plastic. As they wear, they still are thrown out against the walls to scrape because of the springs. So 5-6 years from now, these are still going to scrape the walls. And that's probably how long you'll go before you have to be replacing this, just the springs. So that's not a very long period of time. So that just goes in. And I make sure that's in. Then the front door goes back on. And then we're going to sanitize the machine. It's like that. Now, normally you're taught when you change a car tire that you put the lug nuts on opposite ends like that. So that you get an even fit. Well, we have a safety control built in here which senses the metal so that when this door is off, nothing's going to turn on. So I do tighten this side, just hand tight, that side first, and then this side. And now we're ready to go. Make sure the gate's closed, and we're going to put some sanitary water in there. I'll be off screen for a second. Sanitary water, the purpose is to kill any bacteria that may have grown overnight. And most of the sanitizers are chlorine-based. So in the worst-case scenario, in a pinch, you could use a cap, not a cup, a cap full of Clorox bleach to a gallon of water to sanitize your machine. I'm using a commercial product called Stera Sheen Green Label. You can find that, you can find their web address on the internet, or we can give it to you. The machine comes with some. And this is a powder, and it's basically a chlorine-based product. And it's going to kill off any bacteria that may have grown in the machine overnight. So I put that in here. I'm going to get a spatula and just stir that up a little bit. And then I pour that into the machine. Make sure the gate's closed. Now, the second that hits the interior of the machine, the parts are sterilized. But the health department wants to make sure that you do everything properly, so they say run it for a period of time. And every health inspector department is different, so they'll let you know. But while we're letting that run, let me just explain the infinite overrun control, something I designed 10 years ago, and it's exclusive to Emery Thompson. The way you control the amount of air in the product. The difference between Breyers versus Haagen-Dazs versus gelato is pretty much the air content. Yeah, there's some fine points we'll get into today, but it's pretty much how much air is in the product. Air is important, but I have yet to hear anybody walk out of an ice cream parlor and say, boy, I love that mint chip ice cream. It had the best air content I've ever eaten. You know, people don't do that. You eat flavor. You eat the dairy product. But air is important, and so what I came up with is a system where we can lower the air content of the ice cream by slowing down the drive motor. Just like if you put heavy cream into a bowl, if you have a bowl here and you put heavy cream in, you turn it very slowly, what do you get? You get heavy cream that's been mixed. But if you put a beater in there and whip it really fast, you get whipped cream because it blows up. Same thing with a machine. Now, a high air content ice cream like Breyers, we're going to whip it at, good morning, welcome. We're going to whip it at full speed. If I wanted a Haagen-Dazs type ice cream, I could turn down the RPMs from, say, 250 down to maybe 170, and I'm just slowing down the beater. And if I wanted to make a gelato, I could take it down to about 150, 140. Now, that sounds pretty simple. You say, well, why didn't you just put a rheostat on, and why doesn't everyone do it? Well, in your dining room at home, you have maybe a light dimmer switch. That's called a rheostat. And the light dimmer is taking power away from the light bulbs. It's actually reducing the power of the light bulbs so your room gets dimmer. But it takes a 60-watt bulb and makes it down to about 10 watts. Same thing with a motor here. If we take a 1 horsepower motor and dim it down with a rheostat, now it's only a third of a horsepower or a quarter or an eighth, and it won't have enough strength to pull through that gelato or that Italian ice or that ice cream. With my invention, we are able to, at no matter what speed we're at, we still maintain a 1 horsepower motor. So at 144 RPMs, I have as much strength out of that motor as I have at 234. So this has been sanitized now. I'm going to turn it off. When we make ice cream today, or ices or gelato, we're going to keep it spinning to help it push the product out. It's a thick product. It's going to come out. But right now there's just water in there. And if I open the gate with just water in there, I'm going to get a bath. So we shut everything down, open it up. When the machine's on a level surface, the barrel is pitched forward slightly, so it's going to drain completely. And I like to keep this water off to the side, this sanitary water, so that anything that's going to come in contact with the ice cream, a spatula, a spoon, I can dip it in here, and now it's more sanitary than it was. Even my hands, if I'm going to throw in cookies and I'm not wearing gloves, I'm just going to just dip my hands in there quickly. Again, close the gate. I keep saying that because invariably, in the next year of you running the machine, you're going to be pouring in dairy product or Italian ice, and it's going all over the floor, and you're just staring and going, oh, where's the leak in the machine? And the brain just doesn't work quick enough, and it's actually because you left the gate open. Now, if you follow the directions on the Sterashine and the sanitizer, that's all you have to do. But I don't really follow directions very well, so I'm going to put another rinse through it of just fresh water. So I'll be off camera for a second while I do that. And then we'll be ready to make whatever product we want. Now, as long as I don't open the machine up, as long as I don't take the door off and reach in there and contaminate it with my hands, we don't need to re-sanitize. We could go 10 hours without re-sanitizing as long as we don't open it. The only exception is if you take an hour for lunch, and I know my wife, our office manager, is listening, she gets a minute. I get a minute. She gets the minute after 12, I get the minute before 12 because we're so busy. But if you take an hour lunch, lucky you, I would re-sanitize because then things have had a chance to warm up and you don't want to take a chance of any bacteria growing. So I'm just going to do this, just a little bit of water. I don't need much because the horizontal barrel is going to slosh the product all around nicely. And I'm just going to do a rinse. Now, I had a health inspector once up in New York tell me that I was contaminating the machine by adding water because it was just tap water. Well, he may be right, but the fact is, all our Italian ices are made out of tap water, so it doesn't get any cleaner than that. But technically, they don't want you to do this rinse afterwards, so what you do is you exactly follow the directions on the Sterashine of how much Sterashine to use per amount of water. Now, we're going to start by making a lemon Italian ice. I call it my secret lemon ice formula because over the years I have had people walk into my office and it's tragically funny. They've just come from Brooklyn and they've just met with some elderly gentleman from Genoa, Italy, who for $10,000 sold him his secret lemon ice formula. And I go, oh, let me guess. It's 2 quarts, this is for a bigger machine, 2 quarts of fresh squeezed lemon juice, 6 to 8 pounds of sugar, 14 quarts of water. By this time, they're turning very pale. They're seeing their $10,000 investment go down the drain. And I go, oh, and yes, you take a cheese grater and just grate off what the chef calls the zest of the lemon. By that time, they're flat out on the floor because I've just told them their $10,000 investment was worthless. But that's what I'm going to show you today is the $10,000 lemon ice formula, just in a smaller version of it. And I've got my lemon juice, actually more than I need because we're going to do this to taste. And let me grab my formulas over here. I'll grab one of these. I know them, but I just want to be, and please, if you see me making a mistake or leaving something out, please tell me because I tend to do that. We need 3 quarts of water and 1 3/4 pounds of sugar. So let me go off camera and get the 1 3/4 pounds of sugar. Now, sugar is sugar. There is no difference between Domino and Publix or Pathmark or whatever your store is. So you buy the lowest price sugar you can find because it's all the same stuff and there's no reason to pay a higher price for your main ingredient. When you get into a wholesale business, you might be buying 50-pound bags, but quite frankly, you can often find a better, lower price at Publix for a 5-pound or 10-pound bag than even buying it by the 100-pound. So always keep an eye out. Sugar prices go up and down all the time. It's often used as a loss leader in the stores, meaning that they want to get you to come in to buy other products. So sugar this week is down, really low price. That's when they hate to see me coming because I come in and buy 50, 80 pounds of 5-pound bags. But there is no difference. You don't need confectioner's sugar. You don't need a name brand. You just buy the local store brand. So let me go measure that out. And sugar surprisingly dissolves, what was that, 3.5 pounds? 3 3/4. 1 3/4. Gee, see, it's good I asked. Hold on while I do this. Be 12. Okay, now let me show you a little trick how you can impress your friends. I watched a chef do this and then he told me what he was really doing. He had just measured out on a digital scale the sugar and so and he knew I was watching him and so he comes over and he's going like this, he's going like that, and he gets this quizzical look on his face. He goes back to the bag of sugar and goes like this. And he goes, perfect. It'll really, it'll impress your friends. But, okay, you can see the humor in that. There is just no way. Let's see, we need 3 quarts of water, so let me go over here and get that. Now, one question that's going to come up, I can hear it already, is do you need to filter your water? It's a really good question. Here in Brooksville, Florida, the water is pretty awful. let me just fill this. The water's awful. It's got a high mineral content in it. We all use water softeners in our homes. Otherwise, it ruins all your appliances. It gums up the dishwasher and everything else. So, it's pretty bad water. Should I soften the water, or should I treat the water, reverse osmosis or something like that, to make it better? Well, here in Brooksville, Florida, the answer is no. Because if I'm selling Italian ice here, everybody in Brooksville grew up here for the most part. They've lived here for a long time. They don't know the water's bad. They've been drinking it forever. My brother-in-law is over in Jupiter, Florida. Water's equally bad over there. He has no clue it's terrible. They're just guzzling it down and have no idea that it tastes bad. You know, I'm from New York. We have a very sophisticated filtration system. Up in the Catskills, the filtration system starts with a big wire screen that catches the dead bodies, and spare tires have been thrown into the lake. And then it goes from there. Beautiful water. Here, it's different. But since everybody lives here and knows the water, they're used to the taste, so there's no reason to filter it. Now, if I go down to Miami, everybody in Miami is from the north. And so they are expecting the water and the product to taste like it does up north. So there you need to filter the water. You're working and selling to a different clientele. So that seems to be a standard around the country is, you know, who are you selling to and what's your water like? So I'm just going to pour the water into a bigger container here. And that's all this product is sugar, water, and my flavor. Now, sugar dissolves quite nicely in cold water. Doesn't take a long time. And then we can pour it right into the machine. And to make Italian ice, this is all you need to do. You buy your own sugar and you get your own water from the tap and make this sugar water syrup. One of the questions we have is, what is frozen lemonade compared to Italian ice, or as they call it in New England, slush? We'll get into that in a second. So I'm going to pour this in. I find that if you raise the bucket up above the lip a little bit, you won't spill any. There's a gentleman named Malcolm Stogo who we're going to talk about. He is the premier frozen dessert maker in the world and has written a number of really good books that I use. And he always likes to have a bucket under here just in case you spill, but I don't spill. Now watch, the next time I do this, it'll be a mess. So I've got my sugar and water in here, and I'm going to add about half of my flavor. I have more than I need, but I'm going to just show you. I wanted to make a point. Because the formula is a generalization. It tells you what you need in order to freeze properly. And then you take my secret formula and you adjust it to your personal taste. So without any refrigeration on, I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. And then I'm going to taste it and see where I am. Now, if we were making ice cream, and when we make ice cream and gelato later, you can't really do this, because if we make vanilla ice cream and you taste it at the machine as a liquid, you're going to say, I didn't put enough vanilla in. It tastes weak. The flavor in dairy product blooms over the next 24 hours. It becomes stronger. So I can't really judge it. But here with sugar water flavors, Italian ice, sorbet. Sorbet, by the way, is just Italian ice and charging 75 cents more. It's just the same stuff, sugar, water, and flavor. That's good. I'm going to make it a little more tart by adding a little more flavor. There's another ingredient you can put in called citric acid. I don't use citric acid. It's a clear liquid, and it's to make things tart. But if you've ever had an Italian ice like Marino's up in New York, and you're eating the product, and all of a sudden your throat closes up like this, that's the citric acid. And that's why I don't use it. The alternative to citric acid is more lemon juice. Costs a little more, but at 1 cent per ounce to make this, or in the case of fresh lemon juice, 1.50 cents an ounce to make this, I think I can spring for a little more lemon juice instead of going for the citric acid. All right, so that's all in there, all my ingredients. And now I'm going to turn on the refrigeration. I'm going to start a timer. One of the things I'm going to go through is actual machinery today. I don't put a timer on the machine. And the reason I don't put a timer on the machine is this cost me $6. And I set it for 15 minutes, an approximation of how long I think this product will take. So I can be over here, instead of standing around talking to you all, I'm going to be over here in real production getting my next flavor ready. When the bell goes off, I go, oh, okay, I got a minute to get back to the machine and check it. It's an approximation because the more sugar in the product, the longer the freezing time. So every product is different. Lemon ice has, you saw, the 1 3/4 pounds of sugar in it. If I make a strawberry ice, I not only have the sugar, but I have the strawberries are also sweet, fructose. They're adding more sugar to the recipe. More sugar, longer freezing time. So that's only an approximation. The other reason I don't put it on here like other companies have done in the past is twofold. One, this $6 timer would cost $230. It would have to be NSF and UL approved and waterproof in order to go on the machine. When that timer breaks, you're going to be $230, plus the timer is tied into on other machines, and they don't have anything like this, but it's tied into other machines so that when it goes off, it shuts down the refrigeration system. If the product's not ready, which it usually isn't, you have to turn it all back on again. The timer is only an approximation. If this broke, $230 plus another $200 probably 5 years down the road to replace it, and you have to wait until they get the part. What I do is when this $6 timer breaks, guess what? I throw it out and I go buy another $6 timer. And if I have to, don't ever leave the business, the machine. You're here to make product. So if Paula comes in and says, you got a phone call you got to take, I say, no, I'm busy making ices. If she insists, I take my timer with me. And when this goes off, I say to the customer, I'm sorry, I'm making lemon ice, I got to go. So it's really handy to have it really cheap. And that's what I do. Let's see. For Italian ices, for sorbets, we run at full speed. In this case, it's 234 RPMs, which is standard on Emery Thompson. And so that's freezing away. The walls are getting cold, the beater's spinning, and it's making our ice. We had a phone call. It's got to be from someone in Rhode Island because up in Rhode Island they sell a product that we generically call Rhode Island ice. It's common in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, that area of the world. It's Italian ice taken out of the machine soft, and then they serve it. And I'm going to show it to you. They serve it in a cup like this, and you eat it with a spoon, but it's pretty much on the soft state. And kids like this. We sell this at Universal, Disney, SeaWorld, and there's a 16-ounce cup. You put, say, 15 ounces in this, and it's 2 in the afternoon. 2 in the afternoon in Florida is really hot. Hot and humid, and the kids are tired and cranky, and you spent $60 getting them into SeaWorld, and your day is falling apart, and you've only been there for 3 hours. So you hand this to a child, sugar water and lemon juice, and you say, go sit under that palm tree and eat the product. So they're eating it, they're sipping it, and you're giving them 15 ounces of sugar water, which is going to revive them and makes them feel fresh, refreshed, and ready to go. And now they're ready to go on and see the killer whale and enjoy the rest of the day. So the parents like it. It's a great refresher. It's kind of like being at a football game and being the coach and having the Gatorade poured over your head, except you don't, it's not quite as messy. So we call it frozen lemonade in the amusement parks. Up in New England, they call it slush. What's the difference between slush and Italian ice? Nothing. It's the same product. The only slight difference might be they use a little less sugar than I do. In New York, we call this product Italian ice. In Philadelphia, they call it Italian water ice. They'll say, give me a lemon water ice. Give me a cherry water ice. It means the same as Italian ice. But people will say, oh, you know, the product I get in Philadelphia from Rosati, it's much smoother than what I get in New York. Why is that? It's the sugar content. My formula is 7 pounds of sugar for a bigger machine. In Philadelphia, they use 8 pounds of sugar. For the Rhode Island slush, they use 6 pounds of sugar. The more sugar, the smoother the product. The less sugar, the more coarse it is. Ken, you had a question.
Yes. Do you need to add?
Speak up.
Do you need to add anything like guar gum to Italian ices to hold the product together better at scooping temperature?
They asked, do you need to add guar gum or any other stabilizer? No, but I did forget the lemon. I did want to show you this. A chef calls this the zest. And all you're doing is, you can do this in the bucket before. This product's going to come out pure white, and if I do this long enough, I take about 4 California lemons, and I'm just taking off the outside skin called the zest. It adds nothing to the flavor, but it looks really nice. You have a pure white product with little specks of lemon in it. I've got a customer up in Rhode Island who will remain nameless, but he takes, I just did these a little while ago. He takes the lemon peels. He'd use artificial water if he could, but he uses corn sugar instead of cane sugar because it's cheaper. He uses an extract instead of real lemons, and then he takes chunks of lemon, you know, half this size, throws it in the machine, and you can throw anything into an Emery Thompson. Throws it in, you get the product, it comes out, and it's got a big chunk of lemon sticking out of it. You can't eat this, but you see it sticking out of the product, you say, oh man, that product's fresh. You know, so it's kind of interesting marketing. The guar gum and the carrageenan, let me show you about that. Those are what are called stabilizers. We use stabilizers a lot in ice cream. It helps hold the product together. In Italian ice, stabilizers that we use in ice cream come out and make the sugar water, the Italian ice, sticky and gummy. It's got a bad taste, it's sticky, it's got a bad texture, so I avoid it. The best way to preserve the product is cold. I'm scooping this, I'm going to scoop it at 16 degrees above zero. If I want to keep it for 2 or 3 weeks, I take it down to 0 in my freezer, and it'll stay frozen and nice and held together very fine. If you're in the wholesale business and it's going to be at 16 degrees for a week or 2, then you might need some stabilizers. Well, what I use is there's a company called excuse me, Main Street Ingredients in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And Main Street Ingredients has come up with a stabilizer that is nothing more than guar gum and carrageenan. Excuse me. So that's seaweed and a gum. I mean, you can't get any more natural than that. And if I put that into this sugar water, you won't notice it. So it's really a great product. I'll let you pass that around. They also make one for ice cream. So that's a nice way to stabilize the product without having to worry about it. I'm just going to check on that. Yeah, it's coming along nicely. This thing usually freezes faster than I expect. So we've got sugar, water, flavor. We've got stabilizer if you want it, and the lemon zest just for looks. And that's everything that's secret about Italian ice. Like I said, we store it at 16 degrees above zero. Fahrenheit. I don't know what it is in Celsius. I failed that in high school. But 16 degrees Fahrenheit is the scooping temperature. That is 10 degrees warmer than ice cream. So if we put this product into our serving cabinet with ice cream, within a day it's going to become hard as a rock. You won't be able to scoop it. If you go into an ice cream parlor and you see ice cream and Italian ice in the same cabinet, walk out. It means that there are so many chemicals in the Italian ice to bring the temperature down, it'll pickle you for life. And I just don't want that. Yes, Ken?
What's a good sugar-free substitute to make sugar-free Italian ice?
People have asked what's a good sugar-free substitute to make Italian ice. In my opinion, there really isn't one. Splenda doesn't have enough solids in it to allow you to make a good sugar-free Italian ice. There's a product called multidextrin that works quite effectively. The problem with multidextrin is when you all taste this, it's delicious. You're going to love it, and you're going to want more, and you're going to want more. And if you've ever bought the chocolate candies at CVS or at the supermarket, and they say sugar-free, they're multidextrin instead of having sugar in there. And multidextrin in quantity acts like a laxative. And that's just not a good effect. It doesn't get your customers coming back a second time. I'm a diabetic. I wear a pump. So I find that I don't want to use the multidextrin. I don't like the bad effects. If I want to make a much lower in the glycemic scale Italian ice, I use a product, let me go off camera, called Agave. Let me just check my product here. That's ready. I'll tell you about Agave in a second. I think I want to pull this. Yep. I'm going to turn off the refrigeration. I'm going to just tilt this so you can see it coming out a bit. And this shelf is adjustable, by the way. Can you see how fast that's coming out? That's my Italian ice, pure white. If you see a yellow Italian ice, they've added food coloring. This is just pure white Italian ice. The agave, which by the way, if you buy that in a health food store, is about $7 for a size like this. If you buy it at Publix or Pathmark or any other supermarket, it's half that price. And on a glycemic scale, that's a scale of how, the simplest way to put it is how bad is it for you. Sugar would be up at 97 on a scale of 1 to 100, and the agave would be down around 22. So although I shouldn't be eating this at all, I could have a portion of this and adjust it on my insulin intake and get away with it, though it is not sugar-free. But it's a whole lot better. Now that's out, so I'm going to turn that off. And I was ahead of schedule on my timer. And that's what the product looks like, pure white. And if I had done the lemons, little specks of lemon in it. But that's just sugar, water, and lemon juice. Now I'm going to ask you all to come up here, and I'll give you a sample. I know from past history doing this, people love to get the free samples, and by about 1:30 this afternoon, it's going to be, oh, no, not anymore. Before you do that, I just want to show you that this is actually 3 products in one. First off, if I had pulled it a little softer, this would be Rhode Island slush or frozen lemonade. And we'd serve it in a cup like this with a spoon, and that would be great. I go into fancy, here I'm going to do Italian ice. This is the way we sell it in New York and Philadelphia, is we call this a squeeze cup. If you ask your paper supplier for squeeze cups, you'll never find it. That is a pleated, like a lady's dress, a pleated water cup. That's a 4-ounce portion. That cost me, with the fresh lemon juice, 6 cents to make. And I'm selling this for about $1.50. That's great. Oh, I tell you, I love my own product. Now, don't worry, I'm going to give you some. Now, we go into a fancy French restaurant, or any fancy restaurant. And 2 things. One, the waitress comes over and says, the chef really likes you. And therefore, he's brought over a little medley of 3 sorbets or 2 sorbets, 1 ounce each, for you to have in between your appetizer and the main course. Well, you look around the dining room, and the chef likes everybody. Everybody's getting the free product. But it's a very refreshing thing to have in between an appetizer and a main course, and so chefs love this. So if they're not buying a machine from me, they can be buying this product from you called sorbet, or, thank you, or the Italian would be sorbetto. Now, at the end of a very nice, fine restaurant dinner, you're full. A good restaurant knows they don't want you leaving feeling stuffed and heavy because you won't say, oh, I ate too much. You'll say, oh, that Italian restaurant made me feel full. I'm not going back there. So they want a light dessert. So there is a nice light dish of lemon sorbet, or it could be champagne sorbet, or grapefruit, or apricot, or kiwi. When we sell Italian ice at a fair, it's lemon, cherry, grape, orange, chocolate. When we do a restaurant, it's mango, kiwi, papaya, apricot, same stuff, just a little more upscale. So you've got all these different products. So come on up and grab a spoon. Come on up and I'll give you some. I think you'll find this is pretty good. It's very fresh. And if you see anything in here, those are seeds. I purposely, help yourself to a spoon. I didn't filter it out because that's kind of the fun of it. There you go. And you don't have to eat it all. I've always threatened that I would make a watermelon Italian ice. And what do you do with watermelon? You spit out the seeds. So I thought, why not make the seeds with as chocolate chips? I think that would be fun. So somebody out there's got to do it because I haven't gotten around to it. So I throw you that idea for free. There you go. So this is just sugar, water, and flavor. Nothing more than that. And at a food cost of, the food cost will depend on how you make it. And we're going to go into that in the next product that we make. It can be as low as 1/2 penny an ounce. And it can be as expensive as 1.5 cents an ounce. So a 4-ounce portion, 4 ounces, McDonald's did a lot of good for us because what is 4 ounces? It's a 1/4 pound. You know, it sounds huge. So you're giving people a 1/4 pound scoop of ice cream or a 1/4 pound scoop of Italian ice. Well, it's 4 ounces. So 6 cents, $1.50, or if you're over at Universal Studios, $3 and on and on. Got to tell you about Universal Studios and pray that they're not watching today. I love meeting people smarter than me, and quite frankly, it's not that hard to do. But I went over there. I set them up in 1991 with a big operation making frozen lemonade. And I went back a few months later to see how the project was going. Two things. They had one problem. One was they were losing 32% of the product in the park, delivering it to the park. I said, don't worry, I'll come down and solve the problem. So I came down to Florida from New York, sat on the beach for a couple of days, turned into, crispy critter, and then walked in with my refrigeration delivery system. They thought I was going to come with like a golf cart with a refrigerated back. I walked in with 2 round igloo coolers, the kind you see at the job construction site that hold the water for the employees. And I lined the cooler. They're very heavily insulated. I'm not using the spigot at the bottom. I'm just using the top and the container and the lid. Line it with a plastic bag, dump the product into the igloo cooler, throw it in the freezer. Now you can go out through the park at Universal Studios with all these igloo coolers just delivering it. So I go down to see how things are going, and I taste my product, and I turn to the executive chef, and I said, all right, who messed up my formula? And he said, the suit's upstairs. My apologies if you're watching. The suit's upstairs, change your formula. I said, I know, I taste citric acid, my throat's starting to close. Why'd they do it? They said, come with us, we're going to show you. So we go out into the park and we watch a family get some Italian ice in the frozen lemonade version with a spoon, and they start walking, and they're walking through the park, and they're eating the product, and they're walking through the park, and this is why I mean people smarter than me. By the time they finish that, the citric acid makes you thirsty. And by the time you finish that, it's empty. Where are we standing? We're standing in front of the Pepsi and the Budweiser booths. And by gosh, we're going to sell the family Pepsis and Budweisers. And genius, absolute genius. I loved it. So we're going to go on now and make a mango product. Mango has become very popular. Let me just turn the page here. And oh, by the way, all these formulas are at our website. We call this Lunch with the President. You go by there, and Ken has put them all up on the website. They're all for free. Have fun with them. And using fresh fruit is your most expensive way to make Italian ice. Gee, $0.015 an ounce. We're not talking too bad. I'm just going to throw a rinse through here. I don't need to because I start with light flavors and work down, lemon, orange, cherry, grape. Each one is a darker fruit flavor, and it's going to cover over the other one, whatever little bit is left in the machine. But since I'm going from the tart lemon to the sweet mango, I'm just going to throw a rinse in here real fast and let it take care of that. So, the lemon ice cost $1.50 an ounce. The mango, we're going to use something called a base. And the best base in the country, probably the world, is from Rice Company. They're in Philadelphia. They've been doing this for many, many years. And a base is a gallon jug of flavor. It's got some sugar in here, mango puree. It's really, really good stuff, and it makes it very simple. Your formula is right on the container, and on our bigger machines it says dump the gallon in with 4 pounds of sugar, 16 quarts of water, and you're going to get back 2 of these big tubs of Italian ice. This is going to drop the cost using a base down to about $0.01 an ounce. Costs even less. It's a lot better. I mean, there's a wonderful flavor, this mango, and they have all sorts of ones are in around here, green apple and cherry and grape, and all sorts of things. But, I mean, this beats going over to France and getting fresh mangoes and pureeing them and doing all that work. This is a wonderful flavor. So we're going to make that next, and we'll call it Mango Sorbet. But as you know, that's just Italian ice with a fancy name. I'm concentrating on this machine for this morning, and then we'll go to a bigger one this afternoon. We go all the way up to the world's largest production batch freezer, 11 gallons in the same amount of time that this makes 6 quarts. But with this depression, that's which I started to say earlier, that we targeted high-end restaurants for this, and what happened is this depression or recession, depending on if you have a job, came along, and people aren't satisfied to sit at home and just collect welfare checks. They want to be in business. So they're calling me up, and we're putting them into the Italian ice business. $8,950 and a dipping cabinet, and you're in the Italian ice business. And long hours, hard work, and you're paying the bills. It's a wonderful way to be in business. So that's why I'm showing off this machine the most this morning, because at $89.50, this is very reasonable. So let me look at my formula here. We want 1 quart of mango base, and let me get a measurer. So since it's a smaller machine, we're not using as much as, we're not using the whole gallon. We're only using 1 quart. Just give it a little shake. And a quart of mango base, pound of sugar, 3.5 quarts of water. Okay, let me go over and get the water. So that would bring it 1, 2, 3 would be there. Any questions so far? How's that Italian ice? How's the lemon? Good? Yes, I'll store all my Italian ices at 16 degrees for serving it. That's my serving temperature. If I want to keep it, Italian ice will keep, that was another question, Italian ice will keep for about 3 days, and then the flavor bleeds to the bottom of the can. It starts to bleed. If you go to an old-time pastry shop in Brooklyn, you'll see the server flip back the lid on the dipping cabinet, and the server's in there with their spoon, and in the tub where you can't sit, they're going like this. And then they're pulling it out, putting it in the squeeze cup, and handing it to you. What the server is doing is a puddle of lemon juice, of lemon flavor, has formed in the center of the tub. As it sits there, it separates a little bit. They're just remixing it and then serving it to you. So it'll stay about 4 days without any chemicals in it, absolutely fine. If we throw some chemicals in, we can go for weeks or months. But my attitude is, if you've got a bubblegum licorice Italian ice sitting in your serving cabinet, it's been there for 2.5 months, people are telling you they don't like bubblegum licorice ice cream. or Italian ice. Get rid of it. Also in the Italian ice business, you become very weather dependent. You wake up at 6 in the morning, you get your cup of coffee, and you turn on the Weather Channel. And this is Wednesday, so maybe we're going to make some product today to sell on Saturday. So let's look at the Saturday forecast and see how we're doing. And if it's going to rain on Saturday, we'll cut back. This is a little full, so I actually might spill. We'll cut back. The nice thing about Italian ice as opposed to ice cream is at 1:30 in the afternoon on Saturday, if I run out of mango ice or lemon ice, I can have another batch in about 15 minutes ready to go and pull it a little stiffer out of the machine so that I'm ready to serve it right to the public. Three days at 16 degrees above zero, weeks, months at zero. Yeah. So if you're wholesaling, like if you buy from Little Jimmy's or any of my other customers who are selling Italian ice, these people are making it in May to sell to you in July because they've got a big production. And of course, if you're buying it from a wholesaler up north, you're paying to ship sugar water. And the most expensive, we used to say the most expensive thing in business was labor. Now the most expensive thing in business is shipping. We just got a letter from United Parcel Service. They're going up 6% this month. They went up 6% in January. Come on, 12% in 1 year? That's outrageous. So shipping, 700 pounds of Italian ice from New Jersey when you could make it yourself, and then of course you had to store it in a freezer, and it's not as good as fresh. All right, so what do I got in here? I got the mango. I forgot the sugar. You know what happens when you forget the sugar? I get a phone call, and they say, my machine is banging and clanking. What's wrong? This happened with a customer. He'd had this machine for a number of years, and it's banging and clanking, and it's making all this awful noise. And he calls me at 8 o'clock Saturday night because I give everybody my home phone number. It's 914-643-7391. I'm president of the company. That's my home phone number. That's how confident we are of our machines. So Malik Rose calls up. He's a retired basketball player. I said, what are you making, Malik? He said, I'm making cherry ice. And I said, after checking out a couple of things on the machine, I said, well, Malik, taste it. What's it taste like? He said, Steve, it's awful. It tastes like sugar and it tastes like water and cherry juice. I said, Malik, you left the sugar out. So you're just freezing a giant ice cube. There's nothing to freeze if you don't have the sugar. So that's why the machine was banging and clanking, nothing wrong. And I said, dump the product, remix it, and you'll be in good shape. If that had been one of the other companies who tries to sell against us, you wouldn't have gotten them on the phone until Monday. They would have said, we'll be there in 24 hours. I guarantee you, because my wife hears this all the time, they would have changed the expansion valve, $230. Labor, hour and a half, $300. So you've got a big high bill, and then they would say, okay, Malik, make some product. Malik mixes up the sugar, the water, and the flavor. The machine runs. Hey, they're a hero. They came here within 24 hours, and they fixed my machine. It's great. There was never anything wrong with the machine, ever. And we got them running at 8:15 Saturday night. So it's a big difference. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to just dump raw sugar into a machine. It acts like sandpaper. But it's my machine. So it doesn't like that. But it'll get over it. So now we have all the ingredients in here. Again, I'm going to just test it, because I've usually made these on a bigger machine, and I just want to make sure the formulas, that I did the math right. It's not that hard. That needs a little more mango, so I'm going to add a little more. And when you do this, well, let me get this going first, and I'll talk a little more. The key to business. Well, Alex Haley in the book Wheels said the key to business was just showing up. And that, of course, is the key to business. And we'll turn that on. And let's set the timer again. Give it a little less time. I lost my train of thought. Where was I, Ken? I see you sleeping back there. I'm sorry? Oh, you're answering someone else's question. Okay, well, someone will have to call in and tell me where I was. I get thinking on about 7 different planes at once. But that's all this product is sugar, water, and flavor, again. And now it costs a little less because oh, I know where I was. McDonald's. McDonald's, I love McDonald's. McDonald's here in Brooksville, you go in, you get a hamburger, you know exactly what it's going to taste like. You go to Moscow, you know what it's going to taste like. You're in Istanbul, same hamburger. Consistency throughout the chain. It's always the same. It may not be your quality, but it is always consistent. Year to year, month to month, day to day, location to location, it's always the same. So I tell people in my typical New York way, we want the same thing here. You write down what your formula was. I just added another 3 ounces, give or take, of mango above what the formula said. Write it down. Keep a record of it. So when you taste it, you say, man, that's fantastic. You've got the formula. I hire someone because I'm too busy. I'm just so self-important that I can't be doing this. So I'm sitting around, thinking about my Learjet, according to President Obama, and I've hired someone else to make the product. And so I say, here's my formula. This is a machine by Emery Thompson. If you break the machine, if you go off and talk to your friend on the phone and it freezes up, if you drop a spoon in there and it locks up, it's just a machine. Don't worry about it. Come to me. I need to know you ruined the product so I can call Emery Thompson and find out, in 5 minutes how to get the machine back up and running. It's only a piece of machinery. Now, here's my formula. This is the way I like my formula. You may not like my mango ice, but I like my mango ice, and my mango ice is making me a lot of money. Therefore, this is the formula. If you break the machine, we're going to say, fine, come tell me everything's fine. If you change this formula because you think the boss is a jerk, we're going to break your kneecaps, we're going to drag you out into the street, and then we're going to shoot you, and then we're going to fire you. Because we can't have you changing the formula. We need consistency. When Paula and I go to Cape Cod, maybe every other year, and we go to 4 C's ice cream, we love the mint chip ice cream. It's got to taste exactly the way it did in my mind 2 years ago. They have to have it on hand. They can't be out of it like gelaterias. You're going into a gelateria in Florence, Italy at 11 in the morning. Oh, sorry, we're out of that flavor. Go down the street. You can't do that in the United States. And it's got to taste exactly the way I remember it from 2 years ago. So consistency is the key. If you make a slight variation, write it down. And then it becomes your secret formula, not mine. And that's a lot of fun. I think after we make this, we'll be taking a short break, and then we'll come back and do some more. No, I didn't disappear on camera. I'm off camera here just washing something out. Yes, the question.
When you put it in the white container, what's the difference between a white container and a cylinder, a cardboard cylinder?
Good question. The question was the difference between, I'm looking for a cardboard container. The difference between the white plastic container and these. This is a 2.5, you can buy them 2.5 or 3 gallons. The machine will make, bigger machines are rated for 3-gallon containers. This one makes 1 3-gallon. This makes half of a 3-gallon. Same thing with the cardboard. This particular cardboard is Rhino Packaging in Waverly, New York. I have on my website a list of key suppliers, people that I know the president of the company of, people that I trust, that I like. And Bob Rhino has been selling these for a lot of years for ice cream, and I said, why don't we put a plastic bag in it, and then we can sell it for Italian ice. So he does that too. This used to be $1.25. It might be $1.60 now because plastic with oil is going through the roof. Paper is going to be considerably less than that. This is one way. If you've got a wholesale account and you're using these, you got to tell the owner of the restaurant, wash these up and bring them back to me. Fat chance. It isn't going to happen. You're just never going to see them again. There goes your investment. These, they use it, they throw it away, they're very happy with it. Bob can even imprint these with your company name and logo on them, which is nice too. And they're shipped flat. So you can get 100 of these in a small box, and then it's got very simple instructions that say fold flap A, fold flap B, fold flap C. Even I can follow that. And now you've got a nice tub. In a dipping cabinet in an ice cream parlor, you see them all lined up very nice and neat like this with the separators. And a 16-hole dipping cabinet has 16 flavors showing. Has about 14 down below as reserve, but you see 16. And that's great. That's the way it's done. But if you use the cardboard, because they take up less space, you can get in a 16-hole dipping cabinet 20 of these. So now you've got 4 more flavors into the same dipping cabinet. You don't have to go out and buy another dipping cabinet. You've got, you know, less space, more containers. So they work very well.
Now, they said something about freeze, the paper was more consistent than the bucket.
You're saying that paper is more consistent freezing than the bucket. I have not noticed that. Let me put a plug in for you all got to join this, so take a look at it carefully. There's a group free called Ice Cream Folks at yahoogroups.com. And this is a great organization. It's just a bunch of frozen dessert manufacturers like yourselves who've gotten together, and when you have a question like that, you ask them, and they'll come up with 20 different answers, and you pick which one sounds best to you. It's really great. When I have a question that stumps me, like the other day, I said, where do I buy 36DE corn syrup? 10 answers back right away. It's wonderful. We have been arguing now for a week, just because we do that. Does hot water freeze faster than cold water? The people at Ice Cream Folks are laughing about this right now. We can't believe it's still going on. So, folks at Ice Cream Folks, here's one for you. Does plastic freeze faster than cardboard? I have no idea. So start typing in about that and let me know what the answer is.
What they had said on that was with the cardboard, you don't get that gook on the bottom that you get with the plastic, that syrup that settles to the bottom, because the cardboard keeps it more equal, frozen all the way down to the bottom where the plastic does.
Okay,
You get that slime on the bottom of the plastic.
the person in the audience is saying that with Italian ice, as it ages, it gets a thick slime at the bottom, and that doesn't happen with the round tubs versus the cardboard. That's absolutely not true. It has, I mean, you put this in 0, it's all at 0. It isn't at 6 degrees here and 4 here and 0 here. It's all at 0. There is no difference whatsoever. What the difference is if you're making a wholesale ice and it's of a cheap quality, the cheap heavy stabilizers and the cheap syrup, not something good like iRice, is all going to bleed to the bottom of the can, and then you get a layer of sticky, gummy, old product. I guarantee you, if they had a date on that product, it would say May, and this is July. Because it doesn't matter paper or cardboard, it matters of the quality of the ingredients and how long it's been sitting around. That's a huge, important thing. The fresher, the better. That's coming nicely. This should take a little longer than the other product because the other product was lemon. Lemon doesn't have any sweetness to it. Mango has a lot of sweetness to it, plus the product itself had sweetness, plus I added sugar, so I would expect a longer freezing time. So when the Italian machines put a timer on it, or one company calls it the Hard-O-Matic, that after a certain consistency it shuts off, it's not ready. I've done trade shows where we're all lined up, all competing against each other, and you see the Italians go over like this and turn the switch back on their refrigeration because they know their product's not ready. It's not rocket science, but it is a little bit like baking a pie at home. If the recipe says 23 minutes, do you pull it out at 23 minutes? No. You take a straw and you check it. The 23 minutes is a guideline. It's not a precise thing. We'll be getting into ice cream, but I was just having this discussion with a customer last night in San Francisco, and I think he's watching today. And he wants to make his own dairy product. And I said, do you realize that cows don't put out as much cream in the winter as they do in the summer? So your recipe just went out the window. And did you know that there's a difference between Jersey cows and Guernseys, that they do a different type of cream, slight variations. But unless you're a dairy scientist, you aren't going to know this. So you can't tell me that your recipe is going to be better than what a dairy scientist professional is going to be. So same applies to Italian ice. Cheap ingredients, cheap results. Yes?
We were just at a Green Meadows farm in Orlando. It's like a little kid thing you go around, and they had a water buffalo there. And the lady says, if you get the milk out of a female water buffalo, it's a much creamier milk than you would get from a regular, like Black Angus cow or anything. And that's what would make you a better ice cream if you can get the milk out of a water buffalo female.
Have you ever tried to milk a water buffalo?
But I'm just saying that's what they said. She said
Yeah.
that you'll get a much heavier.
I think I'll try bungee jumping before I try milking a water buffalo. Thank you. It's probably true. I know the goat farmers. We do goat's milk ice cream, and that stuff causes all sorts of problems. It's so thin that we have to convince them that they've got to add some more solids. Solids can be cream. It can be sugar. That's why skim milk is so good for you. In my recipes for ice cream that I buy the mix, which you'll see, it has skim milk in it. Skim milk basically is heavy cream with all the fat removed. Technically we call it milk solids, not fat. But what it means is all the good stuff's there except for the fat. And that's what you, I guess, are running into with the water buffalo too. But were there people there milking water buffaloes?
No, what happened was we just got finished milking the cow. It's over to the water buffalo.
Oh, okay.
And she was telling the difference between the milk that you would get out of a female water buffalo and a regular cow.
As far as I've seen, the difference between a water buffalo and a cow is a water buffalo's got horns and kicks. And Elsie doesn't do that. Now, I'm going to switch containers. You know, and I should put on an Italian accent and everything else because now I'm a professional sorbetto maker. Instead of these containers, now I'm using a gelato pan. And there's a company called, and if I recommend anybody, it's because I find them really good. I don't take money from anyone, but I want to recommend the best to you because it makes it look good. There's a company in Miami called Gelato Supply. They sell these, they're very expensive, and they sell these, they're very inexpensive. And that's a liner. So what I do is I put a liner in, and then when I'm finished, I'll take that out, put it in the freezer, and I still have this left. And that's my approximation. That was 15 minutes. So I'm going to take a look here. And that looks nice. I'll give it a little bit longer. If I was doing high production, if I've got to do 40 of these today, I'd pull it out right now and throw it in the freezer. Let the freezer do a little bit of work. But if it's 2 o'clock and I just ran out of mango and I got a line, I'll freeze it a little stiffer so that I can take it right out to the public. I got my spatula. I'm going to dip it in the sterile water. Yes?
Those plastic buckets that you use in a dipping cabinet, are they at 1.5 gallons?
What size is this? This is 3 gallons. It also comes 2.5 gallons, and you can't tell them apart, hardly. When ice cream was homemade and everything was on Emery Thompson's, we put Breyers into business, Ben & Jerry, Bluebell, Hershey, Haagen-Dazs. The older companies like Breyers, they started off with batch freezers and then grew. The other companies purposely used batch freezers and then grew. But they were all, homemade ice cream was always in 2.5 gallon containers because the machines were 2.5, 5, and 10. Commercial came along in the 1930s and they needed a way to compete with homemade, so they said, oh, we're going to give you not 2.5 gallons, we're going to give you 3 gallons for the same price of 2.5. Just buy our commercial ice cream. And so that's how they got into the stores, by offering another half gallon for free. And it's stuck. Pretty much homemade is 2.5, commercial is 3. This is ready. I'm going to turn off the refrigeration so it doesn't get any colder, and then I'm going to leave it spinning, and here it comes. You can see how fast this comes out. I was watching an Italian chef make some product the other day on an Italian machine, and he was saying how wonderful it was that the product came out incredibly slow so he could decorate it while it was coming out. Well, he was missing the point. Number one, I don't want to be doing this all day. I want to get out of my boat. So the faster I can make this, the faster I'll be happy. The other is, just like in your oven, if you're broiling a steak and it's ready in 8 minutes, and then you take 3 minutes to get it out of the oven, what happens to that steak? It goes from medium rare to well done, because it's still in the machine. Same thing with these products. And doesn't that look nice? And wait till you taste it. It's really great. So this is mango sorbetto, or if you're French, mango sorbet. If you're a New Yorker, it's mango Italian ice. If you're Philadelphia, it's mango water ice. And if you're Bubby's in Hawaii, it's Bubby's Hawaiian ice. You can call it anything you want. There were 7 Greek brothers who left New York and went to Birmingham. And so since they were Greek and there were 7 of them, they called it Greek ices. You know, why not? It can be really anything you want. So let me make some room over here. And then we're going to take a quick break. Let me turn that off. So come on up, and I'll give you a taste of this. I think you'll like it. And you can grab another spoon if you need it. And then if you're in the audience, we're all going to disappear for 10 minutes, and then we'll come right back. There you are. Okay. Is it good? Yeah, iRice makes some really wonderful flavors. Yes, it is. It is like biting into the fruit. And this is really one of my favorites. Yes. The Italians call a coarse Italian ice, they call it granita or granite. And that you would find on Bay 8th Street in Brooklyn. And that is nothing more than, if my New York formula is 7 pounds of sugar, a granita would be 6 pounds of sugar. Here you go. We're going to make a Ralph's Ices. Larry DiStefano owns Ralph's and is a good friend of my wife's. He sends her coupons. So, you know, she'll take the most expensive flight she can find up to New York just to use her 50 cents off coupon at Ralph's Ices. So she loves it. Yeah, you're laughing because it's coupons. His ice, well, a lot of his ices, he's famous for cream ice. And I think we're going to make a cream ice next. But right now we're just going to take a quick break. If anyone would like to use the ladies' or men's rooms, they're over there. Yes?
Questions going with end?
No, anytime. Oh, any questions you have before you brain freeze. Oh, sorry.
If you're going to use agave, do you have a formula for how much sugar to agave? You can switch it out?
Yes, between agave and regular sugar, it's about 2/3 agave to the sugar formula. Maybe even a little less. Hi, Vonda. Everybody, this is the money honey. This is our bookkeeper. You gonna try some?
I heard the mango was done, so.
Yeah, and it's
My
good.
favorite.
Can you take some to Paula?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
How about using fruit juice to flavor? If you didn't want to use that mango base, and you wanted to use mango juice?
Mango juice would work fine. You just have to use more of it. I do that when I make orange Italian ice. I use frozen concentrate. I like Minute Maid frozen concentrate of all of them because it's got pulp in it. And I mix it just like I'm mixing orange juice for the family and turn it into regular orange juice. And then wherever I have water in the formula, I substitute orange juice.
Okay.
So you have to use a lot.
Same with you would just use juice and no water?
Yes. Or It depends on the strength of the fruit. For orange juice, I used to use 2/3 water and 1/3 juice, but now I've changed it where I use all orange juice. It just isn't that expensive. Mango might be a little costly.
But it wouldn't bring the cost up that much, would it?
No, it wouldn't. And look at your starting point. You know, a penny an ounce.
And then if you were selling to, if you're wholesaling to restaurants, they typically will have a freezer that they can store it at 0 degrees. Can you serve out of that? How do you, how's
It-
the restaurant?
Is the mic still up? Okay. If we're, well, you can leave it up. If we're selling to a restaurant, oh, perfect timing. If we're selling to a restaurant, they're going to have a walk-in freezer, 0 degrees or thereabouts. And we're going to tell them, and the chefs know how to do this, they're going to buy the product from you solid as a rock, 0 degrees, you couldn't scoop it with a hammer or chisel. And you're going to deliver to them like that, and then tonight they're going to feature mango sorbet for dessert. They're going to take it out of the 0 degree freezer and put it into a refrigerator. There's a little trick if you don't know it at home. If you've taken ice cream out before the family has dessert and you have it on the counter, it all melts around the outside and then it's hardcore in the center. The way to avoid that is take the ice cream out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, and let it sit there for an hour or two. It'll all warm up to the same temperature. It's called tempering the product back up. So the chef is you're just going to say, Chef, you're buying my half-gallon containers. You just put this in the refrigerator and let it temper up. And then that'll take an hour or two, and then he's got all night to serve it. If it starts, if business is running slow at 8 o'clock, but he knows he's got a big crowd coming in at 8:30, maybe he puts it back in the freezer for 20 minutes. But he's just tempering it. You're not supplying a separate cabinet because he doesn't have room for it. Country clubs will beg you for a separate cabinet because they're so cheap. They want their membership, because I ran the dining operations for a country club. They want the very best in product, but they don't want to pay for it. So they'll want a dipping cabinet, but a restaurant definitely doesn't want it because they have no place to put it. There's an old expression that the money's made at the tables, not the kitchen. And what that means is the kitchen might not be any bigger than from here back, and all out there is the tables. Well, in here is where we're producing all the product, but the dollars are coming from out there. So if we can add 4 more tables and cut back on the chef's kitchen size, so much the better. We'll do it.
If they have product and at the end of the night, they can refreeze it again and that won't
Yes.
compromise it?
No, unless it went completely melted. No, you can refreeze it. So I'm just going to duck out for a second. When I come back, Neil Williams has flown down. Where are you? Augusta National, playing the golf course there? And he's going to tell you about Italian ice push carts. And I'll give Neil an introduction in a second, but I'm just going to disappear for a minute and check what's going on in the emails. So Ken, if you'll pot down my